Hey YouTubers, Josh is back, and here's my episode 3 of my Godzilla Dissection series. Took me a while to get to this one, but I'll be a lot more consistent in the future. But episode 3, nonetheless, here it is, and Godzilla versus King Ghidorah. Since I've pretty much decided that the rotation will pretty much go, I'll do a different era each time. Like first I did Millennium, then I did Showa, now doing Heisei. So next one will be most likely Millennium one again. So, with that out of the way, let's go with episode 3, Godzilla vs. King Ghidorah, released in 1991. And this is a very popular one among fans, and for many a good reason. It has its flaws, and like I said, I'm definitely going to go in depth with this one because it's definitely, I'd say, for us who know the genre very well and grew up with it, you could watch it so many times you realize there's key differences between each one, even in the same era, even in that era like the Heisei, which for the most part was very consistent, but each film did have a different tone, at least most of them did, and they put things in different perspectives depending on what they were going for. So, without further ado, let's delve right into it. Godzilla vs. King Ghidorah was directed by Kazuki Omori, and also written by him, just like good old Godzilla vs. Biollante. And I know he would write some more. I don't believe he directed again. I don't know, he did not, because the later two, I believe, were directed by the same man who do Godzilla 2000. His name escapes me at the moment. It really does. I'm not gonna waste time trying to remember that who did it, but we all know the same guy directed Godzilla vs. Mothra, Godzilla vs. Troy, and Godzilla 2000. In any case, from what he's a very good writer, as far as I'm concerned, and as far as freaking directing goes, I think he's pretty competent as well. Now, to say this movie has a different tone than the ones before it and some of the ones after it, I'll be pretty clear. This film, the Heisei film is always known as more darker and more serious era of Godzilla. However, the Heisei, while definitely still sticking to some of the darker tones, especially as far as Godzilla goes and what Godzilla represents, it was more the cheesy, pseudo-science oriented film, kind of like the classic 60s ones. When I think of this film, I think along the lines of Invasion of Astro Monster. Although definitely still a little more serious, it definitely has a share of cheesy moments. And that's kind of the whole point. This one's supposed to be just really fun. Ignore my phone, please. So what better starting place than the human characters who play very pivotal roles in the story, which I do like. First up, as far as main character, I guess he is kind of the lead, I suppose. Teruzawa, who basically is an author, and he, in the present time of the 1991, writes a theory on the origin of Godzilla. And, lo and behold, people from the future arrive who tell him that, yes, his theory, well, they don't know for sure, but they summarize that they could very well be what created Godzilla. So, and the aliens, the time travelers, well, let me say that briefly. That's why I compare this movie to Invasion of Astro Monsters, because basically the time travelers take the place of what aliens were in the 60s. They're they're humans, but they're not, it's from a kind of otherworldly type aura about them. Although, at least this time they don't have those silly things on their head like in Invasion of Astro Monster, even though I like that movie a lot. So that's the basic story. I don't want to. I will delve into the plot, but I guess to really start things off nice and simple, the basic plot is people from the future arrive who tell people of Japan that they have a way to rid the Earth of Godzilla because he's going to decimate it in the future. And so they do this plan to remove Godzilla, basically erase him from history altogether. However, it backfires because, like the aliens in Invasion of Astro Monster, these time travelers, or futurins, as here some people call them, actually have evil plans of their own, and they plan to use King Ghidorah as an instrument of destruction upon Japan because apparently Japan will be a superpower in the future. And then, so that said, becomes a race against time, no pun intended, to find a way to stop all this crazy shit from happening. And that's why I like this plot. I'm going to delve into the plot in more detail later on, but that's the basic premise of the movie. Godzilla gone, King Ghidorah is here. What the hell do we do now? But getting back into the characters, we have Emmy. Emmy's one of the futurins who turns out to be a relative of Teruzawa in a very Luke and Leia-esque way. They're that close, that damn close. But in any case, of course, we have Miki Sagusa returning. She plays a pretty interesting role. Once again, not really a main character, but still important. And then we have, I guess I could say, we have the main villains. I mean, they're just kind of the villains. But then I guess the most prominent character, really, to me in this movie, I think to a lot of other people, is Mr. Shindo, who's basically a Japanese businessman who served during World War II, and he's the one who has the main connection with Godzilla in this movie, even more so than Miki Sagusa does. So to me, all the characters are pretty interesting, and they all have roles that seem very, there's no one who's just there. Everyone has a role in the story. Even the Japanese businessman, the social elite of Japan have a part to do in the story. There's Teruzawa, the author, and his struggle with the Futurins and the Futurins themselves, which are interesting. And of course, there's Android M11. The Godzilla Terminator. But hey, every time someone brings that up, I say it's cool, bro. We had 1974 Mechagodzilla. 10 years before the first Terminator, we had the whole machine under the synthetic skin stuff. So yeah. As far as originality goes, I'm not picking sides. Just let it be. But yeah, the characters are very interesting, and they keep the story going. And when you first go in this movie, you're expecting something a little different. Especially when I first saw it, because I know people haven't seen it, may be a little disheartened at the fact that Godzilla technically does not appear in full force, well over an hour into the movie. Kind of like the new 2014 one, which people criticize so much for that. But yeah, Godzilla does not show up till well over an hour into the movie. You get little glimpses here and there, but he's not actually involved in this. He's not actually on screen for a majority of the runtime of the movie. And the thing interesting is the human characters still keep the atmosphere of intensity going, which I like, and the plot's so interesting and fast moving that you stay interested in what's going on, and that's some crazy thing about this movie. So even when I watched it years ago for the first time, I was like, no Godzilla, but the plot is crazy enough to keep me interested. So speaking of the plot, like I said, I like the pace of it. I love the Godzilla movies. That's, I think, something the Heisei movies are kind of missing, except for probably no, I guess a few. I mean, the Shinsei or Millennium movies. I guess a few of them did have it. A few of them did, but not just this. They didn't have it the same way. Is that they have the whole concept of, a problem. They want to get rid of Godzilla, but then they create another problem. So then Godzilla has to take care of that, and then Godzilla's the problem again. And a few of them have done it. But just not in the same ways. I mean, Mechagodzilla attempted it, and it did it very well. And so did Final Wars. Final Wars kind of squandered it to me. But yeah, so I guess it has been done since then. But I think this is the first one to me that really did it in an awesome way. It just really did it because I don't know, maybe because the King Ghidorah they brought back as a secondary problem, who ultimately becomes also kind of a savior for them by the end, which is very interesting. I mean, Megaguirus was a cool villain, but Megaguirus was also a play toy. Came to Godzilla in full power. I mean, Megaguirus got killed with one shot of the heat ray. One shot. Very good fight. I love that fight, but on the power scale, Megaguirus is pretty weak compared to something like King Ghidorah. There's some great fights in here, but like I said, story. I like the story. I like the pace of it. Uh, Speaking of the story, the whole Godzilla origin story, I like this origin story quite a bit, and the fact that Shinoda and Godzilla are interconnected makes it just very, it adds a very emotional and interesting aspect to it that was never covered in the original films, and is not covered in the later era of Godzilla, the Millennium era. His origin's not really covered again ever, except for right here. And that I do like, because they take their time with it, they explain it. I think that's the part that every Godzilla fan will always remember from this movie, no matter what. It's basically legendary in the kaiju genre, as far as I honestly would say. And that'd be the whole Shindo and Godzilla stare down they have in Tokyo while Godzilla's on his rampage. I mean, the basic story is that Shindo was part of the garrison that was inadvertently saved by the Godzillasaurus way back before Godzilla was even mutated at all by the H-bomb test. And Shindo felt a bit of guilt and gratitude for what the dinosaur had done for him. It protected them for territorial reasons, obviously. I mean, he's just an animal. But he also felt, like I said, guilt because he couldn't really do anything to help the dinosaur. And I think that's one of the little sly things they put in the movie, because I know that, I mean, this may be a bit of a stretch, but the Japanese culture, at least back then, as far as war goes, Bushido, had a very strict code of death by battle. And I think, because it leads to an open interpretation as well as to why Godzilla hates humanity. And there's a number of theories people have done over the years. And I have several theories that can come from just from that one scene. The one theory, obvious one, is that Godzilla hates what he has become, power granted. He hates the fact that he simply cannot have a peaceful transition into the next world. I don't know for sure, but he hates that he's no longer his former self. He's a monster. And then on a deeper level, I think it could be a personal hatred for the fact that the humans left him to die. Like he said, Shindo said, we can't carry you. There's nothing they could do. Although, technically speaking, they could have at least finished him off, but they did not do that. They let him die of his wounds, and he sat there bleeding to death on the jungle floor as they left back home for Japan. So, you combine his hatred for being left to die with being turned into a whole other species. You combine those together, and you have a monster who, yeah, I could see why he's pissed off at humanity for what's been done to him over the years. I could see that. And it's very interesting. So years later, when they meet again, I know they're both more powerful. Shindo has been from a soldier to a powerful corporate, titan, and Godzilla has become Godzilla. So when they meet again, that the anger apparently still lingered. That's what I love about that scene. It's just incredible. I mean, the actor not Teriyushi Kano, Yoshio, I slaughtered that, but Yoshio Tsuchiya, who ironically, come to think of it, when I keep making parallels to Invasion of Astro Monster, guess what? Tsuchiya played the controller of Planet X. He was the Exilian leader in that movie, and lo and behold, they got him to play an important character in this movie. It's not a coincidence if you ask me. But in any case, his acting was so good, You could see the agony in his face for what has happened between them. And then the Godzilla animatronic looks so good in that scene. I just love the eyes. It's just incredible. You see a lot of pain and anger. And that's pretty much how that scene culminates, All that anger and aggression and guilt for what happened in the past culminates, unfortunately, in death for Shindo, and it's just awesome. So yeah, I just love that. And I guess moving on to another really great aspect of this movie is the freaking score. The score for this one was awesome. This was the first time Ifukube had officially came back to do a score for the Godzilla movies. He had not done a score since, of course, 1975's Terror Godzilla, the one I covered last time. And Return of Godzilla had a whole brand new composer, and Godzilla's Biollante as well. Although Biollante did use Ifukube themes, they were composed by the new composer, not Ifukube himself. So this time around, it was just incredible. The music was awesome from start to finish. I loved all the themes. He brings back a lot of classic themes, including the march theme from Stray Monsters. He brings back the King Ghidorah theme in a very stunning piece. I love that theme for King Ghidorah. Of course, the Godzilla theme is just badass. I love every time you hear it in this one. You just want to start marching. And then, of course, they have those softer themes in here. I love those too. Really great stuff. One of my favorite Ifukube scores. One of the best of the Heisei era. Really is. Now, let's go to my favorite section of this movie, the monsters. Because technically speaking, there's not that many monsters in here. You know, it's a good old classic versus movie, just two opponents. However, the many forms these monsters take makes it a very interesting thing to talk about. So I guess first I'll go with Godzilla. First is Godzillasaurus. Now, in the first movie, it was I'm talking 1954. It was referenced that Godzilla was mutated from a previous form of some dinosaur, but we never knew what it was that he got mutated from. It was always up for debate, I guess, up until then, and now we know, specifically speaking, it's a Godzillasaurus, for lack of a better name, that wasn't a T-Rex. It was its own separate species of dinosaur, and it looks pretty different than most dinosaurs are depicted. It doesn't have the Tyrannosaurus square head or the tiny arms. But the Godzillasaurus did look pretty neat. It really did. And of course, any Gamera fans out there, I'm sorry they had to use the Gamera roar while he was getting killed. I guess Toho was just laughing their asses off when they did it. But like I said, my Godzilla-thon, a few years down the road, actually 4 years in fact, Gamera would challenge the holy hell of Godzilla with Gamera Guardian of the Universe. But that's a debate for another time. So yeah, the Godzillasaurus is pretty neat. It was interesting seeing a Godzilla-like creature, not Geno. That's not Godzilla-like. It's just a whole other iteration of some crap. It was interesting seeing a Godzilla-like creature being mortal. First time seeing it, it's interesting. Godzilla himself, the 1991 suit, looks freaking badass. It has very few bad angles, and for the most part it looks really, really good. I like the length of the tail, I like the body structure. I like it just as much as the one in Godzilla's Biollante. Of course, I'll say that for Biollante review, but the stark differences between this suit and the one in 1984, Return of Godzilla, but yeah, I like this Godzilla suit. I really do. It has those nice, fierce eyes. And, yeah, it just looks awesome. The double row of teeth looks freaking fantastic. I love the aura Godzilla has. He just cannot be freaking stopped. He's on a mission of just punishing humanity in this one. And to the King Ghidorah, I guess you could call it the King Ghidorah life cycle. The Dorits were interesting looking creatures. King Ghidorah's origin, if you didn't know, in this one he's basically a genetically engineered pet from the future. I guess I can see that happening in the future. Why not? Random things. I don't know how they made it. I mean, genetic engineering, of course, but what they combined to make the thing, I don't know. Because when you first see it, it looks like a Pokemon, I guess, the best way I could describe it simply. And then from there, they bring 3 of them, and then the whole point of it was that they moved Godzilla's body away from where the bomb would be tested, so they could mutating him, but of course that backfires because he's mutated into an even stronger variant. However, then the Dorets are hit by the nuclear blast, and they fuse together and become King Ghidorah. So basically, the timeline would be that they were mutated back in the 40s, and then by the time the 90s roll around, I guess King Ghidorah's been growing on that island the whole time, and then beckons to Japan with the Futurin's technology because they control him, just like they did in Invasion of Astro Monster. I mean, King Ghidorah has not activated his own free reign during any movie, except for Ghidorah Three-Headed Monster's original film. Other than that, and I guess GMK, I suppose, he's always been under the control of somebody. But in any case, the whole point of it is that now the Dorets are fused into King Ghidorah. Now, what do I think of the 1991 King Ghidorah suit? I like it a whole freaking lot. Now, do I wish there some things would have been changed? Yes, I actually do miss the beard or the manes that the King Ghidorah had in the 60s. I do miss it quite a bit. I thought it gave him a very interesting look. But I still like this version of King Ghidorah a lot. It has a more square head than the 60s version, which I like. I love the look of the wings. And the rest of the power of the original King Ghidorah is still imposed in the design of the body. Big wings, very long arching necks, fantastic horns, fantastic freaking horns. Although honestly, the Grand King Ghidorah suit, which was in Rebirth of Mothra 3, terrible movie, but great King Ghidorah costume, was a better version of King Ghidorah, a lot more homage to the 60s version while still looking incredibly badass. But for what we get right here, it's still awesome. I mean, I don't hate the GMK version of King Ghidorah, but I like this version just a little bit more. But of course, they're going for a different type of tone with King Ghidorah. This type of King Ghidorah, even though he's under the control of the humans, he's his usual badass self. He's here to impose overall power. You know, he's bigger than Godzilla. He's the biggest. I don't think weight-wise he's the biggest. I think Destroy is probably a little heavier, or Beyonce's a little heavier, but height-wise, he's humongous. He dwarfs Godzilla. And going to the fight between, that's my favorite fight in almost the whole Heisei era. The King Ghidorah Godzilla fight was just incredible. It was long. They did some interesting moves. A lot of physical fighting, not just beams like other space gods, but a lot of physical fighting, a lot of stomping each other, biting, strangling. And of course, they still used the beam weapons, and they kept the fight mobile. You know, King Ghidorah's flying around. It was just awesome. Although, if I had one more very minor complaint, I mean, overall it's fine, but I just didn't like the fact that they changed King Ghidorah's freaking roar from the very eerie and, excuse me, very recognizable roar he had in the Showa era to the Rodan-esque, the modified Rodan-esque cackle slash screech that we hear in this movie. I still like the roar quite a bit. I mean, it's pretty nice, but I like the 60s one a whole lot more. It's still better than what they did with Batra, we just literally reused Rodan's roar. But in any case, moving on, and then of course we have another highlight of this movie, one of the best mechs you'll ever see in your life, Mecha King Ghidorah. My god, when I had that toy as a kid, it blew my mind. Seeing it on film for the first time blew my mind. Practical effects were the shit. It blew my mind to see that monstrosity. Mecha King Ghidorah was just brilliant. And that fight was also very nice. It was, in physical moments, it had a lot of energy beams, but they kept the pace of it good. And a whole lot of city destruction. That was a great set. I believe Shinjuku District. It was great. It was freaking great. I loved every minute of that fight. I really did. Mecha King Ghidorah, SH Monster Arts, someday when I'm rich, I will buy the hell out of that thing. But Mecha King Ghidorah definitely needs to reappear in a movie sometime in the future, because that thing is just awesome. I love it, I love it, I love it. So with the music and the characters and the monsters out of the way with, so where does this film stand amongst the other Heisei greats? Now, To me, I think this is one of the best of the Heisei era. It has a creative story, like, you know, the later ones are really freaking good, like Destroy It, early ones like Biolante, while also having enough fun with it to keep it interesting. And it didn't have some of the flaws that would irk me, like ones like Godzilla Space Godzilla just gets kind of dumb and lazy with the fight scenes, and some of the characters are kind of dumb. I mean, fuck Mogira. Fuck Mogira. But in any case, pardon my language, but I mean, emotionally, I mean, it has emotional moments with Shindo, yes. Emotionally, it bounces out pretty well. I mean, Shindo is a very good character. He's not the exactly we say he is kind of the center, but he's a little more important than Serizawa, I'd honestly say, as far as the long run of the story goes. Kind of, I don't know. It's a weird balance. That's the thing. It reaches a weird balance with the characters and how they interact and what they're supposed to do and how they relate to the climax. Like I said, very strange, but it works. Now, one thing that does irk me about the film, I love this movie, but overall I do dislike the fact that some things, I mean, some parts of it haven't aged well, because, like I said though, some parts of it were a little too ambitious for a Toho movie at the time, I suppose. But like I said, it's not really that big of a deal. I mean, these are Godzilla movies after all, and I've enjoyed all of them, despite whatever special effects flaws there may be. Some things have aged kind of, for this film. Whereas other films like Godzilla vs. Destroy, I think have aged pretty darn well, along Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla. But hey, those are small complaints in a movie that, like I said, Toho financed, so a smaller scale than Hollywood productions at the time. But otherwise, still very good and the physical effects look great. Like I said, the sets in this movie look awesome. The suits look awesome. The animatronics, pretty freaking great. And I even like the design of the Futurin ship. It looks pretty impressive. I like it. I like it a whole lot. Now, the themes of this movie to me are very complicated. The themes, I guess, so much are, I guess, to me, they're not so much themes, but it's so much more ideas it pokes. The film makes you think about certain things to a certain extent. And to me, some of the center points of this movie are, the question of pride and nationality. And this is brought up because, the Futurins are Caucasian, or European, whatever you want to call them, but one of them is, as the movie points out, a Japanese, I believe, citizen. I'm not sure they call it Japanese citizen per se, but her descendants were Japanese regardless. So that brings, when someone, the whole destroy Japan idea comes up, it becomes a problem for her because she feels like she betrayed her country. Which is pretty interesting. I like that. That's why time travelers are a little better than aliens. Because you have that little human aspect. She felt like a traitor to her country, which leads to her helping them out. Another thing, I guess, I definitely would say the impact of the past on future events, that definitely plays a key role. It definitely does. The mistakes of Shindo and man lead to the curse of Godzilla, which is pretty neat. And then, of course, speaking of the theme, there's also, I'm pretty sure a lot of people are familiar with it, a controversy in the 90s when the film was released because of the scene where the Godzilla source is attacking the American troops during World War II scene. And I guess some people viewed it as anti-American, Japan lashing back at something that happened 40 plus years ago almost at the time. And it was a subtle controversy. I'm not sure if much came of it. I don't really think so. At the time, Japanese Godzilla movies were not getting released theatrically anyways, so I'm not sure how many people had even seen it at that point, other than, in Japan and through VHS tapes, which, from what I recall, were still not released until many years later. I believe it was not released. This film was officially was not released until 1998, in accordance with the arrival of the 1998 American Godzilla movie, if you could call it such. And as for my opinion on that scene, I don't think it was meant to be anti-American at all. I think it simply was the story. The Americans just had to make Godzillasaurus territory, and so it fought back. There you go. In any case, doesn't really matter. I think it was a very silly thing that they brought up. And yeah, I mean, come on, it's this is a nice vintage sci-fi movie. I don't think it's had any political goals in mind. But in any case, so Godzilla vs. King Ghidorah, definitely one of the classics and one of the best of the Godzilla movies. And I would definitely give this one an 8.5 out of 10. B plus, just like I did Terminator Godzilla, because it's good. I don't like how certain parts of the film look. Just my own personal opinion. I don't like how some of the human action scenes look. I think they could have done a little bit better. However, overall the film was really good. Majority of the effects to me are still really good. Music is great. The tone is great. The ideas in it are great. It's a very fun movie, and trust me, you will not get bored. It's pretty entertaining. So for those who haven't seen Godzilla vs. King Ghidorah, definitely get on it. And so with that wrapped up, let's see, what am I going to hit up next? Well, I've been thinking about it a lot. Awfully already said beginning is going to be another Millennium movie. So I was thinking, let's do Godzilla Tokyo SOS, one of my top 10, next time.